In this video, we'll be going over how to comp a property. So just finding the properties that have sold in the particular areas using this MLS to be able to get a valuation for the home in question. You might want to use this in situations where you are, trying to get the valuation for a potential buyer. So if a buyer wants to find out how much a property is worth prior to writing an offer, that's a common scenario in which you want to go over the comps. As well as a potential listing appointment where somebody wants to list their home and they want to find out how much the property is worth. You would simply go to the MLS, find the properties that have sold in that area, and then be able to interpret the data and find the valuations that way. There's a couple ways to do this. But what we'll be doing is I'll just go over how to do quick searches for sold properties. And we'll go a little bit about what we could do within advanced searches. If you're watching this video, you've seen the automatic emails video where we actually go into the advanced search a little bit more. But I just want to give you a basic view of how to use the MLS to then better use the data to be able to get the past sales to then get the valuation. So we're just going to assume that we're going into a normal residential home. Just like if we're searching a basic property, we have all the steps right here, so I won't go over explaining everything that we're looking at right now, as you should have already watched the previous videos to explain most, if not all, of the stuff. But for this particular video, I want to find out the valuations of a property. Let's just say we're going to choose a town in Essex County. Let's just use an example of East Orange. And right now we're looking for properties that have sold. Again, we want to see not what's currently on the market, but what's sold in the past year or so, or 6 months. So we're going to uncheck the under contract, continue to show, and the active properties, and just select S for sold. We're going to move ahead to the right-hand side and fill out this criteria first, and then I'll explain under the address for the property if we were looking to do something like that. So I want to do list prices between 300,000 and 400,000, just because I have a client that says their home's worth, or they think that their property's worth 350 in East Orange, and I don't have too much information on it, but I want to find out what has sold within that range, so that I can get a better idea of what their home is actually worth. And you could do it from the list date, but I don't think that that's very helpful for closed properties. Neither is under contract date. We're not using those search tools typically. We want close date. So for this particular thing, I want from the date of today. And your best comps are going to be within the last 6 months. That's what appraisers end up using. That's what most people end up viewing when they're trying to do valuations. If there's not a lot of properties that have ended up selling in the last 6 months, you can go back as far as a year. But I really wouldn't go back further than a year, because those comps are just not going to be good. If you don't have comps in an area within a year, it might be a little bit harder to comp that type of property, especially if there's a reason why not many properties have sold around this area. But again, you'll find that out more as you use the MLS, as you get more familiar with areas. So we're going to go back 6 months approximately. Even if we go 7 months, I don't really care. But yeah, approximately 6 months. So we don't have to actually look at list price. What I'll do is we'll actually do the sale price for the property. This will include everything that's actually sold. So when a client says, I think my home's worth 350, I guess we would be looking more to what the actual properties have sold in that town, because list price versus sale price can be different. As we see in other listings, a property can be listed for one thing, and it could sell for higher than list price, or it could sell for lower than list price, and in some situations it even sells for list price. So for valuing a property, I think it would be better in this particular case to use sale price as one of our searches. And I know that this property that I'm making up right now, I'm just going to assume that it's a 3-bedroom. So I want to look at only 3 bedrooms for right now. We could do 3 to 4 bedrooms if there's not that many, if there's a lot more 4 bedrooms in this area. But we're trying to get as close to the value for this property as possible. And I just want to show you like the basic tools, and then we'll go into the advanced searches and really like go through the criteria. But we're just assuming we're just doing a valuation for somebody that has somewhat of an interest in listing their home, or maybe they want a valuation for the property they're about to put an offer on. But this is just going to be a very basics video, and I'll try and hit some of the more in-depth criteria as we go on. Total bathrooms. We'll just say that they have a 2.5 bathroom, so I want a total bathroom of between 2 and 3, because that'll still be within a very close valuation of ours. We could go ahead and fill out this other criteria. We can. I'm not going to though. We'll just see what's currently available. Year built description. I'm just going to leave that alone as well for right now, just because I don't know exactly how many properties we're going to find. And I'm also going to select, since I don't have like an area that I'm selecting within East Orange, I'll just say that this property is a colonial and A-frame, or like a A-frame and colonial will be like pretty comparable, or we'll just click colonial for now and see what comes up. Okay, great. So there's 6 properties that are colonials that have sold in East Orange. Between the price range, or the list price, it looks like $248, and it sold for $300,000. It was on the market for 9 days, so that went to a multiple bid situation, obviously. List price $295, sold for $308, $299, $305, listed at $320, sold for $305. Listed for $325, sold for $310, listed for $370, sold for $370. So it seems like we have a lot more data on colonials that are 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a lot of these are 2.5 bathrooms that go to more of the lower 300 range. And then this one outlier that we have at 370, which we'll go over because that can happen from time to time. As you can see from just this picture that I'm pulling up right now, this home is going to look a lot different than the rest of these. So the first property that we're looking at is going to be this 32 or 32 Newfield Street. And again, I'm just going to assume we have a 2.5 bathroom as well. So we don't have any comps in this particular in this group that sold below 300,000, because that's just the criteria that we have right now. So if they say it's worth 350, then we really want to check through these properties and see how similar they actually are. Now, this is the first property that we're looking at. Again, you guys should already know at this point how to read the MLS sheet, but we're just going to hit some highlights. So definitely looking at the different criteria and different the different info that you're going to get for the rooms and bathrooms is going to be pivotal, and just all of this information comparing to what you do know about the property is going to be pivotal as well. Looking at pictures and looking at the remarks is going to be, a pretty important way of actually comping homes too. So we want to look. I like to look through the pictures. Now, if you're doing evaluation for the property, you should have an idea of like what the ins and outs of that property that you're doing evaluation are for. And if you don't, then you try and do your best and you do your research before the appointment. And maybe the first appointment that you're going on is to look at the property, and maybe you want to seem more knowledgeable about the area, or you do want to seem knowledgeable about the area. You want to know everything prior to going on that appointment so that you're armed with knowledge. It looks like this property is completely renovated just from the pictures. I'm sure In the description, it probably says something similar. It looks like it's staged. New carpets, new vanities, freshly painted. So I would say, without reading any of this information, it looks like the inside was actually renovated. The outside looks fairly in good shape, but not like completely brand new like some of these other listings that I'm sure we're going to see. So they priced it on the low end, and they got a multiple bidding war and ended up going to somebody who purchased cash. So if you have a property in East Orange that's somewhere even near Newfield Street, you want to know like the area. It'll tell you these schools up here. The section is Ampere. So if you're in Ampere and you have a property that is completely renovated on the inside and is roughly around the square footage and lot size, that's going to be like closer to the valuation that your client is looking for. So we're going to the next property. Doesn't say the section, so you just have to look up on the street and make sure that it's pretty close to the property that you're looking for. Again, East Orange can be kind of big, so being on one section of East Orange, and having your property on the other might not be like a very good comp. So we'll take a look at these pictures. In these pictures, this property has not been renovated. It looks, pretty old. It looks like it's in good condition, but the room sizes aren't like very big. There's nothing like in particular about this property that is a big selling point, but it ended up selling for $308. Now, it was only days on market and active days on market 42 and 22. So this property did sell fairly quickly. So a nice one family, updated kitchen, living room, ready to move in. 5-car garage parking space for more than 30 cars, a must see. So that's an interesting layout. So we have a lot size of 40 by 208. So that's definitely where a lot of the valuation comes from. They actually don't have a picture of the driveway or the garage or anything like that. So that's definitely something to note. So this is on some type of a lot system where they have plenty of parking, which definitely affects the valuation. So just from my experience, something that's not this renovated but does have a larger lot size, that can definitely account for the difference in the price valuation, even though the interior isn't completely renovated. I would then go to the tax record and find out like what the square footage of this one. And I just have a feeling that the square footage for this particular property is most likely also larger. So if you do have a larger square footage, you have a larger lot size, you have some big additional plus to the property, like massive amounts of parking in an area where parking is considered to be desirable, like it is in East Orange, and like knowing that area is going to help you with that kind of stuff. Then you can kind of get an idea of, okay, if our client had a property that's pretty close to this area, completely renovated interior, maybe a little bit larger square footage, and then also have this large lot size and bigger, larger amount for parking, that we would know that it would be worth more than the property that we just looked at, that was completely renovated on the inside. So we're getting an idea for like the area and, what is needed in this area to increase the value for the property. So let's take a look at the next one. So this one sold for $305. It was listed at $299, and it was on the market for a little while, and you never know why that is, but let's take a look at it. So I know just from basically looking at this home that this is probably smaller than the last two homes that we looked at. The exterior of the property looks, completely brand new. So, brand new exterior for the property. I'm assuming, yes, as of course, the inside of the property is completely done too. And we're not going to go over the tax record in this video or like looking it up, because you guys should know how to do that by this point. But the kitchen, the dining room, everything is brand new in this house. So taking a look at this, and although we've seen a property that is renovated on the interior before, you have to understand that there's going to be a difference in quality and whatnot. So this is definitely a property that they used high quality finishes. They made sure that the yard itself was maintained very well, or that they put new sod down. Again, it looks like a new roof, new siding, everything's painted. So this property might be the smallest one that we've looked at so far. It definitely has the smallest lot size, but everything is brand new. So having a smaller property in this particular section on Netherwood Terrace, having that completely done, it's going to increase the value for the property to 305. So you know that the lot size definitely affects valuations to this area too. So we're just getting more and more information. This particular property was listed for 319, sold for 305, totally renovated. Yeah, so it looks like most of these properties, unless it has a crazy lot size, is like a fix and flip in this area for this particular price range of between 300,000 and 400,000, which is good to know. So yeah, so definitely like it looks just like going through these pictures that this might be a little bit more of an odd layout, and you can kind of see that from the exterior of the property as well. But everything looks pretty nice. The basement looks a little dirty, but that's probably fine because they're just doing work down there. This one was on the market for a little bit longer than the other ones. Looks like they were trying to list a little bit higher to get more value from the property, or try and test the market to see what they could potentially sell for. And even their LLC is Fixer Upper Homes LLC. So they do this for a living, or as part of their business. And this does not have a garage. It has a 2-car width driveway. It looks like a spot for 2 cars or so. And this is 35 by 150 lot. So still like on par with the other, with some of the smaller lot size ones that we've been looking at. But again, this one has a new exterior as well. So given its layout and the quality of work, it looks like these properties, the valuation is going to be roughly around 300,000. And then this last property, not the last property, this next one that it has sold for 310 instead at 325. New on the inside, completely renovated on the inside. Looks like the exterior was done with new siding as well. So that within a certain square footage and range, that brand new siding, new roof, completely renovated property, at any given point, it looks like it's at least 300,000 in East Orange, or at least it's roughly around that range, even without looking at some of the more nuanced things like square footage, whether or not the basement's finished, all that stuff being accounted for. Even like all these sizes of these properties are relatively the same. This one has one of the smaller lot sizes, 33 by 100. I think that's the smallest one we've seen so far, and it's still sold within, or it had it under contract within 30 to 40 days, which is pretty good. And this one ended up selling for 310, so that's pretty excellent for this area. Taxes are a little bit lower as well. And then the last one for 370. Largest lot size is 75 by 141, looks like. One of the larger lot sizes. This is just a bigger property than any of the ones that we looked at. This is also like a different style. This is just like your standard colonial with an attached 2-car garage. So these nuances, these smaller things, and it doesn't look like it's completely renovated, but for this section of East Orange, I'm sure it's one of the nicer sections that'll affect the valuation for the property. Just the sheer size of this property is why it sold for 370, and it sold within 30 days. So this is proper valuation. it looks like the valuation when they originally put the property on the market was perfect. The taxes are $16,000. Even without looking at it, I know that the square footage is much larger than this. The house was also built in 2007, so that it probably wasn't renovated since then. But that's still within 12 to 15 years of the quality of finishes. With so new construction, that is always going to be like the highest price point. This is not considered a new construction property at 2007 build, but this is the most recently built, or at least one of the most recently built ones that we've looked at today. So we know now if our client is looking for a 350 valuation for their property, they have to be roughly around this square footage. They have to be in this section of East Orange. They have to have it either as a newer construction home, so like anything built in the last 10 to 15 years, with siding that's in good condition, and an interior that's in good condition as well, or they have to be like a new construction home, or newer construction within like the last 3 to 5 years. That's maybe a little bit smaller as square footage, but still has the finishes for the property that would be like on par for what somebody would be using to the standards of the day that you're watching this video. So again, it's important to look at all these comps and take a look at, and we'll actually make another video for more advanced searches, but this is just to get an idea of what the properties are valued at, like how to go through and actually interpret the data. And then when you do want to present the comps to your clients, you're either going to email them over these properties or you're going to print it out for them as well. And that'll conclude this video, and we'll go into more depth a little bit later for how to comp these.